I'm Bill Malik, the chair of the Portland chapter, and really, really sorry that we were not able to have an in-person meeting this January. However, you probably would all agree it's probably a good idea not to have an in-person meeting. So instead, we're here today. With us tonight, we have our national representative, if that's the right term, Joanclair Richter. She's going to give us an update on what's going on the national front. And that's going to be followed by updates from the people who have been heading up our main committees. Quick reminder, there are many actions that we can all take on climate change, and we want to support people in our chapter to work on any campaigns or any climate work they want to work on. All that we ask is that you got 2 people in the team, and the team puts together a bit of a plan for the year in terms of what they're trying to accomplish, so that we can head towards something and support you guys in anything you want to do. So tonight we have, with that said, we have this year started 4 new action committees, including legislative group, renewables, food, and plastics. Our 5th committee, anchored by Lynn Merrick, has been active for many years and is quite successful. So we feel that being able to support folks and have enough people on a team will help us be successful. So in a few years, they can be talking about another committee that you're working on that would be successful. So we will hear from all of those committees tonight, but we're going to start off with Joanclair. And Joanclair, why don't you take it away and give us an update of what's going on the national front? Oh, before you do that, if there are any questions, I'll be monitoring the chat. And when the speaker is finished, I'll be able to kind of summarize those questions and read them. But if you want to speak yourself, wait until this is about a 10-minute update, and wait till the speaker is done, and then go ahead and speak. I don't need to be involved if you don't want me to be. Go ahead, Joanclair.
Great. Thanks, Bill. So great to be here with all of you. I really love attending these chapter meetings because I get the chance to meet with the chapter chairs and sometimes chapter leadership, but it's not so often that I get to meet with and get to know the chapter members in each of the chapters that I support. So just thrilled to be here, and it's so nice to meet all of you. I know I've met some of you, actually, having said that, but there are definitely some new faces here. So wonderful to be here. And I will just say that my dog has been very needy over the last week. So he is sitting in my lap, so you may catch a glimpse of him and he may make an appearance, just fair warning. So I am well, it's a little confusing because my role just changed as of yesterday or today. Was a Pacific regional organizer and sort of still am, but also our chapter's program manager. Just had a baby, is having a baby, potentially had one today, very up in the air. She's on maternity leave. And so I am also the interim chapters program manager. So that means I support the chapters program nationally and help collaborate with the other regional organizers to give folks a sense of our chapters program. There are 5 regions across the country. I still support all the Pacific region, but I'm also helping the other organizers across the rest of the country. Yeah, I always like to tell people a little bit about my background, and forgive me if you've already heard this, but I started with Climate Reality as a volunteer. So I trained in 2017 in Denver, and at which point I came home from the training super jazzed and started the LA chapter with 5 other folks, and then mentored in LA and heard about a job opening, and here I am. So I love to tell that story because I feel like that's how a lot of us start, just randomly volunteering, or maybe not so randomly for other folks. And yeah, so I really feel connected to the chapters program through my own personal experience as well. And feel like I can really relate to what it's like to run a chapter and participate in these campaigns. So just wanted to let folks know about all that. So at the organization internally, Ken Berlin, our CEO, has asked us over the past, like I'd say 2 years, to put together what we call OKRs. So they're objectives and key results, if you're not familiar. And so these are shooting for the star kind of objectives. It's like an exercise, right? So they're not only goals, they're really, you're encouraged to set them up so that you don't complete all of them, but maybe like it gets you thinking outside the box, right? So those are the things that I'm actually going to share with you this evening is our 2022 strategy, but through the lens of our OKRs. So our organizational objectives and key results. And I pulled from the organization's like overall OKRs, as well as the engagement team OKRs. And the engagement team is the team who's responsible for dealing with supporting all of our chapters and our climate leaders, really all of our volunteers. So I've taken a lot more of the engagement team OKRs because they're more relevant for this evening. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. I might take up 10 minutes, as Bill said, but it might be a little bit shorter too. And please feel free to keep your questions, jot them down. I'm going to leave some time in the end for questions as well, because that's where I tend to learn, is from all of you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you see my slide deck?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So our 2022 strategy, these are, like I said, the organizational OKRs. So one of the goals that is relevant to us is to recruit, train, and engage global climate activists to address the climate crisis. Seems pretty broad, I'd say. But what that means is to grow the capacity of our chapters and branch offices. For those who aren't familiar, our branches are our international program. So our national program consists of chapters. Our international program consists of branches. To engage large numbers of new climate leaders and greater collective action through training, tools, strategies, and direct staff support. So like I said, this sounds pretty general, but what I read in this is that for folks that have been with the organization for a while and were doing in-person training, say a couple of years ago, we used to train people 800 to 1,600 people at a time, maybe a little bit more. Some of our trainings these days, because they're virtual, they're more accessible. We can host more people on the platform. They go up to like 6,000 people, right? So what that means is that we are growing the capacity of our chapters, but also sort of looking at our programmatics and how to adapt to that growth. So this is one of, those goals. The second is to advocate for and fight against policies, regulations, and projects in targeted regions around the world to hold global warming increase to no more than 1.5 degrees centigrade and accelerate a just transition to net zero emissions by or before 2050 as determined by each branch. So 2050 is not normally the number that you may have heard in our campaigns, but this is more of our global goal. And so I just wanted to touch on that. I'm not a policy expert, so I probably won't be able to answer very specific questions, but please give them to me anyways, because I'd be happy to get specific answers to that and return those to Bill. And the other thing I wanted to highlight here is a just transition to net zero emissions. So we've made a very strong shift in the last year towards a lot more of this just transitions, equity, diversity. And that is really like one of the major through lines of a lot of the work that we're doing these days. The third organizational goal that I put on here was to evaluate and adapt climate reality structure and processes as a global organization, given growth in numbers of leaders and supporters. So back to what I was saying before, our number of climate reality leaders is growing as they graduate these trainings. Also, our numbers of supporters are growing because prior to our chapters program, which is only about 3 years old at this point, we didn't have folks really associated with our organization that weren't trained as much, right? So like, you might be surprised to know that in the chapters program, I think it's like pretty much 50-50 last time I looked, of trained climate reality leaders and chapter members, those folks who say haven't been trained. So that gives us a lot more access to our community and really gives us a lot more supporters. So we're adjusting and adapting our structure and program and processes to all that growth. So that's what this sits on. Now, more specifically on the engagement side. So this is with our volunteers and chapter members. So the first is to re-engage our chapters on our Climate Moment, or OCM campaign, which is our federal legislation campaign. I'll get more into that later, but it's called our Climate Moment. Participation and advocacy surrounding implementation and state and agency accountability of infrastructure bill passage and BBBA. So Build Back Better, if and when it passes. So this is definitely one of our main priorities for the year. I noticed that Karen Harrington is on this call. She'd be able to tell you, and maybe I'll give her a minute in a couple minutes, about OCM. And it really, last year was a lot on federal legislation. And as we're looking into this year and how we're going to address that campaign and sort of build out that campaign further, we are looking a little bit more locally and regionally. Yeah, just wanted to hit on that. Engagement goal 2, develop and roll out advocacy mobilization roadmap, which is the global 5 pillars plus revised acts of advocacy, and launch new PET. Okay, so I'm going to stop in the middle of this because there's a lot of information here. So the folks who worked with us last year may have remembered the 5 pillars mobilization roadmap. So essentially we have 5 pillars that started in the Our Climate Moment campaign, but that we've moved them towards the focus of the chapters advocacy as well, like the chapters program. And so let's say you have an idea to think about like working with grid alternatives on solar in your neighborhood, right? We'd want you to think about whether that work falls under one of the 5 pillars that we like sort of built our program around and are starting to focus on. But what I will point out here is the word advocacy in the mobilization roadmap. So we definitely have been because of Mr. Gore's, start with an inconvenient truth and all of that, we've been an organization who has been surrounded around giving presentations, educating folks on climate change for many years. And we've done a really great job doing that. We are starting to switch to more of an advocacy organization. So we want folks talking to their elected officials, having conversations with their state senators, always including a call to action and say a meeting that you're having, getting folks mobilized, right? So I just wanted to point that out because it is a little bit different than what we've been doing. Not to say we don't want you to give presentations, but maybe to build that into the presentations that you're giving. I will also say that the launched new PETChem expansion campaigns to accommodate the growth in trained climate reality leaders and assist chapters with building out advocacy strategy around new framework. Okay, so that's very wordy, but there's definitely been a petrochemical expansion campaign in the Ohio River Valley for the past years or so. It's been getting built out. It's basically petchem expansion, plastics, the role of all that. But we are looking to build that campaign a lot more across the country and less regionally based in the Ohio River Valley. So that's something to keep an eye out for. A reminder that these are all goals for the year, right? They're not like, I don't have say dates on these goals for you. So just to keep that in mind. Goal 3, rebrand and house campus core under inconvenient youth and expand to 3 to 6 HBCUs and larger swath of youth, specifically non-college, and targeted strategy to engage more youth of color. So this is not per se super relevant, because campus core, for folks that don't know, we have community chapters and then we have college campus chapters, and those, but I did want to include this here because a lot of chapters in the Pacific region have things like youth committees, and the values in this goal are relevant to even if you have a youth committee, right? So, and maybe there's a campus core chapter that you want to work with as well. Goal 4, develop and deploy a state program, 5 to 6 states, and host in-person or virtual regional advocacy focused convenings for chapter members and climate reality leaders. So this is where it gets interesting, in my opinion. So basically what's happening at the moment is the policy team is looking into what bills are potentially going to pass in each state and what bills are going to pass in each state, like the likelihood of the bills passing in each state. And we're weighing that against how many climate reality leaders, how many chapters, how active are they in that state, right? So we are narrowing it down, I should say, to 5 to 6 states, and those states will host in-person and virtual regional advocacy focused convenings. There'll be a lot of takeaway from those convenings too. So if there's not one of those in your state, I'll definitely have more materials to share on that. And the last, I think this is my last goal, let's see. Yeah, that's my last goal, sorry. Oh, am I still sharing my screen? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what happened there. 1 second, please. Oh, 1 second. Okay. So the last goal is Reality Hub Overhaul. So for folks who have are familiar with Reality Hub and are trained climate reality leaders, although having said that, if you're not a trained climate reality leader, you might still have a Reality Hub account. So you probably are aware. We are doing a like complete redo, if you will. A lot of folks find Reality Hub cumbersome. It's difficult to log acts of leadership. So we are going to be working with a platform called Mobilize, and basically looking for, we've already started the process of building out what that looks like, but it's basically the new Reality Hub. But this platform will do things like replace chapters Facebook pages. You'll be able to interact across chapters. You'll be able to post resources and working groups and things like this, and everyone will eventually be brought onto this platform. So that's over the next year. But yeah, anyways, that is what I've got. Let me stop sharing my screen. And I get that that was a lot of information, and also Bill, you can stop me at any point in time. But also, if anyone has any questions.
You know, I'll kick off the questions, and I'm pretty sure Zoe may be thinking the same thing. Zoe Pettit works, leads our plastics committee. And the question I have for you is, the second goal, you talked about the 5 pillars, and if you would, just in the chat, could you just type out what those 5 pillars are, or maybe just so everybody knows what they are? But one of them, you talked about petchem expansion in the Ohio River Valley. That's not something necessarily that we over here way over in Oregon kind of think about that much. And I'm wondering if people who are working on that in the Ohio River Valley, let's say, or in Louisiana in the South, what would they want other chapters to do to help their work? You know, it might be talk to their legislators. We don't really have a good, clear, at least I don't, vision of who those legislators are. It might be just something simple as in your community, talk about plastic reduction, but I don't know what they would say someone way over here in Oregon should work on. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, totally. Well, I guess I have some thoughts, but I'm not on the pet chem team, right? So like what I would love to do is get you a more complete answer on that. But what I can tell you from what I know is that we're looking at, like, to think about the whole life cycle of when the plastic was created to the plastic being cleaned up, right? So when you're having a conversation with someone about plastics, what I learned from our campaign managers on pet chem here is that you want to start thinking about all the communities that are affected by the plastics being created as well when you're having these conversations, if that makes sense. So like a lot of times the plastic cleanup doesn't, not always, but like you want to take into consideration where that plastic is coming from in the first place and who's responsible for creating that plastic. But I would love to have, I'm going to ask Kelly, our pet chem manager, on that question, because it's actually a really relevant question to our region, because a lot of folks in California and Oregon and Washington are all thinking about plastic pollution and less so about pet chem expansion, right? So I'm going to get a more educated answer on that and get back to you all.
Okay, I'll make sure that everybody here finds out about that. Actually, you know, Joanclair, that it might be best to give that information to Zoe. You thinking, Zoe, you thinking that? Yeah.
Yeah, I can send my email in the chat. That would be awesome.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks, Zoe.
Any other questions for Joanclair? Oh, come on, people. Gonna have a question. Go ahead.
Karen has a question. Karen Harrington.
Hi, Joan and Claire. Nice to see you. So our climate moment, I think you said that you're looking at a relaunch, and do you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like? I've been a little out of the loop for the last couple of months moving, and so I'd love to hear what National is thinking about.
Yeah, totally. So for everyone who doesn't know Karen, she's a total superstar in the Our Climate Moment federal legislation campaign. Just saying.
We had a lot of success in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
We had a great committee.
Very good committee. Having said that, Karen, I think what the difference is now is that before we were looking at federal legislation and pushing, say, one message, if that makes sense, like across the country. And of course, tailored to the specifics of your region, like the climate stories and all that would be about the wildfires in Santa Cruz or whatever. But now we're really looking at like state specific bills. And so a lot of that work that maybe your team was doing is going to be more, well, first of all, we have more policy people on the OCM team now. So they'll be assessing state by state and also asking you to talk to specific people. Does that make sense?
It does. So will there still be a national headquarters that will be assisting and helping with the direction of the campaigns state by state? And that's a heavy lift.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there'll be national support. And I think even more, it will be, yeah, I think there's more support than before because now we have Shebed and Jeremy. And also the regional organizers are going to be fed like more regional information. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, it's exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, maybe we'll have more luck there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Rick?
So kind of two related questions, one of which is, was wondering if you could explain a little bit more about the focus convenings with the 5 to 6 states and how that fits in. And then kind of give us a little bit better teaser on kind of what, if anything, we might look for from national as far as the Build Back Better America implementation organization emphasis.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get back to you on the second question. I'll just tell you that immediately. Because, and if you could put your email in the chat too, that would be helpful for me, Rick. So let me just write that down real quick. BBA follow-up. But as far as the convenings, I will say that, like I said, I mean, we're just teasing these out, right? But in the areas where we're most likely to get bills passed based on our capacity, support, and the likelihood of the bills passing in the first place, we're going to be holding 5 to 6 convenings in those states, at which point, well, it all depends, right? Like on COVID, whether it will be virtual or in person, but those will be facilitated by your regional organizer. So if one was in Oregon, let's just say, for example, I would be facilitating that, but the policy team who's working on our climate moment and all of that will be educating us on how to deliver all that information. So it's like, yeah, I mean, if that makes sense.
So let me reframe that a little bit. How are you going to choose the 5 or 6 states? What are you looking for?
The likelihood of the bills. Okay, so one is whether the bills that are likely to pass in that state fall within our 5 pillars. 2 is whether those bills are likely to pass. And 3 is whether we have chapter support and strong support in those states so that we can get our chapters and climate reality leaders to go talk to their local elected officials about said bill.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a question from Karen, and if I get this right, or if I don't get this right, Karen, maybe you can help me out there. But her basic question is the effect of, I think, the climate footprint of US military activities. And is that being talked about in your circles? Is that about right, Karen?
Well, my understanding is that the climate footprint of the US military, not only nationally, but worldwide, is really not even factored into our climate reduction measures as they were calculated like for COP26. And it's a tremendous source of not only local and in several states, significant pollution, but it's, I'm not sure that there's much planning going on to reduce the carbon footprint of the US military. And that goes for almost every military of every nation. So, you know, if we're having outreach to other countries, it would seem to me that this would be something at least bringing into the conversation. And the most significant issues of particularly water fall under the venue of the Army Corps of Engineers. And these are issues that are active in almost every state. And they're familiar to our legislature, you know, our national and state leaders, sometimes even to local leaders. And so, you know, this is like the biggest thing in our budget. So what is climate reality saying? What do we as citizens say about all of this? Is there anything that's coming on to the climate reality, you know, merry-go-round that we can try and at least find out what locally what's going on and do something about it.
Yeah, Karen, I think this is honestly a really interesting topic. I'll be honest, it doesn't come up much in meetings or in our campaigns. But having said that, I mean, I completely agree with you. It seems like it's something that we should be at least looking at or measuring or considering when we're thinking about policy. But yeah, I mean, I haven't heard it come up as part of our like focus as an organization, I'd say. But I'm sorry to be like a what's it called, broken record, but if you could put your email in the chat, I could also look into it a little bit further.
Yeah, I guess at this point I'd settle for some honesty about what the cost to the environment is from the US military at this time. Let's
Yeah,
get the
excellent,
word out there.
excellent,
Yeah.
excellent question, Karen. I think Joanclair will, if you can stick your email in the chat, Joanclair will get the update coming from DC. I'm sure it's probably an avoided topic. I would like to move on to some of our committee updates. However, we don't always get Joanclair on the line here, and I wanted to give everybody a chance to ask her any questions if you have any in your mind that we haven't talked about or we haven't looked in the chat. So any other questions for Joanclair? Okay, great. I think you said you might have to hop off, Joanclair.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I
thank
do
you.
have to hop, but thank you all so much. I'm sorry that I couldn't answer all these questions, but I definitely will get back to you if your name's in the chat. So appreciate your patience and thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, Joanclair. So one of the things that Joanclair talked about that's going on nationally is focus on state legislative work. And about a year ago, when the leadership team started working for this year's agenda, we were lacking a legislative focus. And most climate reality chapters, that's where they start. They start at the legislative focus. We didn't have one. We had a lot of interest in actions and individual action work, which is awesome. But I'm super excited to have Keith Wolf give us an update on the legislative group that got together at the end of the year. So the timing was perfect because we can count it as a feather in our cap for this year. And so I'll toss it over to Keith and let you give an update. There we go.
Thanks, Bill. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everyone. And, special thanks to Joanclair for joining us. I think she's gone now, but it's great to hear her talk, especially about the direction that National's going. And I heard a lot of legislative focus discussion. And so I think it's timely for us to have a great group of folks who've come together to help put together this legislative task force and then provide information to the membership and opportunities to either join the task force, to join as members, or to just be at the receiving end of the information that we will put together, and then looking for opportunities to act. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'll put up a couple things and show you where we are currently. And if someone could tell me when they see that screen.
I can see it.
Okay, so we are live and we are on the website. So this is the Climate Legislation Initiative landing page. And basically all of our information is going to redound here at this point. We've got some discussions about other ways to share information, and we'll continue to talk about that. We've had one meeting, and I'll show you some of the notes and a little bit of what came out of that first meeting. But we had a very good group of people, 8 people, 7 people, I think 8 people are involved on the task force, with I think now several other folks have now signed up. So we've got a Google Meet email, we've got a group email, We've got a Google page that I will show you and as well. And then in the end, you know, we want everything to land where it's accessible for everybody to see and to push some buttons and be able to learn and act. So just a quick view through this page. Climate legislation, we talked about kind of some goals and objectives and what we want to serve our community and members with. First is just information and have the ability to look at everything that's going on in the state of Oregon and a little bit in Washington as well. Washington states, you know, we share some waters and we certainly share climate with them. On my email, one of the email trains that we have, we've, you know, many of us have signed up for announcements. So we are involved in gathering information from the legislative service accounts, various accounts, and perusing through this information and determining whether or not it's actionable, whether it's relevant, and whether it's something that we want to go ahead and put forward. If it's climate related and if it's legislatively pertinent, then, you know, it's certainly going to show up. We'll be less restrictive in what, you know, we filter. We'll just, you know, we certainly will be focused. I like the three categories that Joanclair talked about for the co-convening bills in the state that are likely to pass or should pass. I think I would add to that, and where there's chapter support. So I think we have all three in this chapter, and certainly in the state of Oregon. So just a little bit more, the you know, all of the information is here, how to get involved, how to learn more, what the task force is all about. We meet the last Wednesday of each month at 6:30 p.m. Here's our email to be added to the Google group email list. I'll talk here about our goals that we came up with. Create a strong foundation for the task force. We need to be effective, and that just means member participation, and supporting the task force members. And invite others to participate. Build communications tools so we make it easy for folks and all of us to, you know, look at have the big picture. We're down to the smaller picture of focus for things that are relevant to the chapter and for for the reality climate folks. Align with other legislative oriented groups in Oregon, of which there are many in Oregon. Oregon's pretty darn active with groups. But there's some good parts of that, and there's some, I think, some drawbacks to that. And so we're talking about how we can reach out to those groups and build coalitions and work together on things. And I think that's going to happen as well. I think there was just some discussion yesterday about the chapters and about the groups within Oregon finding better alignment within the state. And I think that's going to that will help, and that will move forward. We want to create awareness and information opportunities, again, for Oregon. Certainly Portland is a focus, West Coast, regionally, and even nationally. We should be paying attention to Build Back Better. I saw questions about being able to carve out the climate provisions of Build Back Better. And I certainly think that that kind of information should be part of the universe of information that we put out here, and allow, you know, provide opportunity for people to engage at that level if they so choose. It may not be a chapter initiative, but it certainly can be individual initiatives. And at some point, it may be something that a chapter discusses and takes on as well. Support for legislative issues around climate change so that we can act. And this gets to, I don't know if it's here, but what we really want to do is be impactful. We want to be impactful. We want to make a difference and make sure that we are a force in moving legislation forward or opposing legislation or actions that will have, you know, can have deleterious effects on the climate that we know of. So we want to be impactful, I think, is one of the main things we came up with. So there's, again, links to the working group meetings. Next one is January 26th. The link to the Zoom is here as well. So I think that I will just pop over and just take a look. Just here's an example of something that just came across, I think, just yesterday, and the types of things we want to make sure that we're aligning ourselves with. So the Oregon Global Warming Commission is pretty active and involved in the things that are going on in Salem. So these are the types of things that we'll be posting and making sure that we have links to and provide. So that's just one example in addition to all the kind of in the weeds stuff that will be looking through and on specific bills and activities. So there's just another example. I also noticed that the national newsletter came out, I think maybe it was today. And what I saw was a great focus on legislation here as well. And, you know, it looked at the New York State winds, and these are basically talking about things that are done at the legislative level. And in terms of regulations about new buildings, power plants, the kind of issues that we've talked about with Jordan Cove and other things here in the state of Oregon. So there's just a whole group of things that I would say that we would be hopefully contributing to and saying, here's what's going on in Portland and in Oregon. Here's some milestones and some things that we've taken action on, and here are some of those results. So it's nice to see that there's a place at the national level that's paying attention to those as well and reporting that out. I think that I wanted to just also show a couple of the other tools that we have. Well, that's not it. Pardon me. We have a Google site as well. So a Google site where we work. And so we just have some folders here where members are putting information, and I think anybody will have access to this. This is where the sausage is made a little bit, but it's also the place where, you know, you can find information about, you know, what's going on. This is the note. These are the notes from the first chapter meeting that happened on the 29th of December, 2021. And you see here the members. I want to just give a shout out to everybody: Harmony, Karen, Anna, Alan, Kate, who is an active member, and other folks who have signed up. We will get your names in there, and certainly invite you to this next meeting at the end of this month and help participate. So we did a little background on each of us and put that in here. We formed up around a meeting schedule, and we agreed to this. These Zoom meetings are all set for the entire year now through help from Bill and Joanclair as well. And we've got those listed. These are listed on the main website as well. You click on show all meetings, and that should show up. And then each month, the next meeting will be the front piece. You know, we talked about mission goals, how to organize, what expectations were. Use of Slack is one of the things that Karen has brought from the Bay Area, and that we are looking at as a way to manage this information and manage the information flow to folks. So that's something that we are going to continue to look at, especially from, you know, chapters who've been there, done that, and have had some success. We talked about a vision. We envisioned serving our chapter and our community with information access, proposed actions related to climate, sustainability, and overall environmental action. And then, you know, we have some goals here that we set for ourselves, and you know, we want people to also comment on in the meetings. We'll look at these again, and, you know, make sure that we are being inclusive and that we're being respectful for, you know, all points of view, and making sure that we can get that in there and do the best we can. And then, you know, help us always have touchstones for the work of the task force. Actions is really front and center here. How do we get information into the chapter that's actionable? And so we've gone through a whole list of things here. We had some action items that I think I think we've pretty much taken care of most of these already. And so we'll start up on a new set of action items in the next meeting, I'm certain. Scope and geography, we talked a little bit about that as well. And then we already started on folks providing additional links to information about legislation. and how to access and get that information. So this is partly for legislative task force members to use to help elevate and float up the information to membership, but it's also for anyone who wants to be, dig in there with us. So I think that there'll be a section here on the web page that will have other interesting links and information. Karen provided some, Alan did. I provided some as well. And so I guess the other thing, and I think, Bill, I'll wrap up with this a little bit, is that we talked about some of the other types of actions and how to get in and how to be, agile in the way that we do this. Having information and putting it forward and saying, hey, there's this bill and it does this and it could use your support, and here's how to act. Here's how you can be active is one level. And that will include providing and posting all of the representative Congress and even the national delegations information, their links to their websites, but also to other groups, especially direct links to folks that we'll be looking to reach out to. Part of what we want to also do is make sure that we're bringing something to the table in terms of the monthly meetings as well, other than reports. So we want to have invited speakers. And so we want legislative staff and or legislators coming and speaking to us about specific things. We've already got a couple things teed up. Amy, who's not on the phone with us tonight, or on the meeting with us tonight, has already made some introductions, and we've already made some outreach, and we've got some planned meetings with some legislators to talk to their staff there and about what can they do in terms of like town hall meetings for us. What can they bring to our table, and how can we have some back and forth with them, in addition to being able to go direct and write letters and make phone calls. So I guess that's the $5 tour. And so I guess, Bill, I guess I go ahead and open it up for.
I'd say it's more like a $10 tour. Thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Keith right now? I'm a little bit worried about time. So if you have direct questions for Keith, put them in the chat and we will route that back to Keith, and he'll get back to you if you also put your email in the chat as well. Thank you, Zoe. Zoe informed me that hers is super short, so I shouldn't worry. So we're trying to get this done by 8. I don't think it's going to happen. If you have to hop off, that's fine. I did want to give Keith his time because they are kind of a new group, and obviously the legislative group really does connect to what the National is doing in a very big way. Not to say the other bodies of work aren't important, but to talk about those other bodies of work, I'd like to introduce Ken Barker. Do I see you on the screen, Ken? Yep. There you are. Who's going to talk about the Renewable Committee? Take it away, Ken.
Thank you, Bill. Good to see everyone. Good evening. I'm kind of representing Nick tonight. Nick wrote up a real good information on me, so I'm just going to kind of read that, paraphrase that, so you can do it. Again, I'm with the Renewable Energy group. We've been focusing mainly on solar. The big projects we're working on now are the Interfaith Solar Campaign is pitching a proposal to the Faith Foundation to serve as a bank and loan organizer. So we're trying to get some funding for some of these solar projects. We've identified around 45 different congregations with good sites, and we've connected the churches with our member Rachel, who I think I saw on the call, at Sunbridge as a site evaluator and contract to help the projects get off the ground. So we're actually pursuing some solar projects, and we are always constantly approaching more congregations, more synagogues. So if any of you do go to a church and you think solar might be a good idea, please let us know, and we'd be happy to work with you on that. We're also talking to the Tualatin Hills Park and Rec District, very big district in Washington County, trying to get solar put on some of their buildings and some of their parks. And we're also talking to the Beaverton and Tigard school districts to try to get some solar on their buildings. So we're kind of being very proactive there. What we're also trying to do is to develop a series of articles targeted towards different kinds of decision makers and internal advocates of community-based organizations. So we want these articles that we can send out to these groups and let them know about solar, let them know about community solar, and try to get them hooked. And then basically help them choose what actions they have and help them follow up with that. Because a lot of times people don't want to have contractors bang on the door and other things, but we're just lonely volunteers, and sometimes the doors open up to us. So we can basically, once these blogs are set, we can share these blogs with any organization that it applies to, so we can get out there and get a lot of solar put up there. We also have a couple of new folks that joined our committee this past week. Tracy Farwell, who I think is on the call, is working with TriMet and public transportation. And Rick Newton, who's also on this call, is working on farming beyond net zero, trying to get renewable energy on the farm, on the tractors and the trucks and so forth. So we are really branching out with a lot of our solar renewable options. Kind of following up on Keith, we're not really necessarily legislative, but we're going after the Public Utility Commissions and the Oregon Department of Energy. They're having a big meeting tomorrow from 1 to 3 on how quickly they're going to ditch methane gas. So we're going to be watching that, and I think it's up to 3 hours long. So if anyone wants to join us on that, that'd be great. Take notes. Otherwise, I think Nick's going to be there, but sometimes 3 hours can be a long time to be listening to that type of talk. We will then, just as Keith was mentioning, we will then send out an email, I guess through Bill, to the membership and let him know when it's important to actually make public comments on this bill, so we can hopefully get methane out of our system. Kind of what we need most, our wish list, is we're really trying to help a lot of these organizations, buildings, put solar on. And a lot of times that means money. So if any of you are a CPA, have financial experience, have a big wad of money in your wallets, bank executives, please let us know, because a lot of times finances can be a big hurdle for a lot of these organizations. We're also trying to get the word out. So if anyone has any PR experience, press release experience, we're looking for you. And we're also looking for lots of folks to get involved with solar. As we're seeing with our committee, each one of us kind of has our pet projects. And then it's great, we get together and help support each other on those projects and go forward. So if any of you are interested in solar, I'm right now pursuing vertical wind turbines as a source. So if you're at all in renewable, please contact us. I'll put Nick's email on the chat room. So and we have our meetings every other Tuesday. Our next meeting is February 1st from 8:15 to 9:15 a.m. And I think that's it, Bill. And I will let people email Nick if they have questions, or if someone has something quick, they can put in the chat and I can try to answer it.
Excellent, Ken. Thank you very much. You know, a lot of this might seem like legislative is way out there, and renewables or someone else is working on that. But Craig is working on the Climate Friendly Food Committee, and that's something that we do, all of us do every day. And I think it's really interesting how it becomes very personal very quickly when you start talking about something like food. So Craig, why don't you talk about food for a minute?
Thanks, Bill. We've been going for about a year now as a committee, and the two main things that we're focused on this year are educating and advocating for change. In terms of education, we want our presence on the website to be a resource. And so we've talked about what we should make available through the Climate Reality chapter website so that people can educate themselves or share resources with others. We want to be an education resource for this chapter. So as people have questions or consider making their own changes, either to their personal diet, their family, workplace, we want to be available for you to ask us those types of questions. And then we also want to be a source of education for the community, whether it be, you know, the people that we work with, where we live, different organizations that we're part of. We want people to know kind of what we're about as a group here with Climate Reality. And then the action part of our group is advocating, and we focus on 3 different things. One of them is advocating for people to make personal choices that include or increase climate-friendly foods into their diets. Advocating within climate reality. So, for example, if we would have had an in-person meeting, our committee would have been happy to organize the food component of the meeting, either making suggestions of what types of foods would be climate-friendly to bring, or providing the food on behalf of our committee and kind of sharing like why we chose what we chose. And then the third thing is advocating, again, within our community. So schools that were part of legislation at the city and state level. Ken has been joining our meetings on and off, and he's working with Tiger where he lives and advocating for change in that community. So those are our 2 big things. And then I wanted to share a couple examples of what some of our committee members are doing. One of them is Steve Goldman. He's not on the call right now, but he is down in Eugene. And the last couple of months, he's been organizing a climate-friendly food sampling event at Sundance Natural Foods, which is a co-op down in Eugene. And we got some exciting news. Last month, he actually received a grant from a food organization that's going to be funding the budget for his food that is being donated at his sample table. So that was exciting. And then another person that's doing some great work is Linda, and she's on the call. And so I asked her if she could take a minute to share quickly what she's going to be doing this weekend, actually.
Thank you, Craig. I was asked to give a little talk to the Committee for Earth, which is part of the Unitarian Church downtown. And that committee has mostly been focusing on fossil fuels, but recently they have decided to take up agriculture, particularly animal agriculture and its relationship to climate. And so I'm going to give them a little talk, mostly focusing on a plant-rich diet and also food waste. And they specifically asked for climate-friendly recipes. So we'll be talking about that a little bit. And then also I want to give them a bunch of the things that I consider to be the most beneficial resources, in terms of local chefs who could, have websites with recipes. And I'm also going to talk about some books that I think are really important to read. And I'm just going to hold up one because it's new and I'm just about halfway through it, but I just super highly recommend this book. And it's called Food and Climate Change Without the Hot Air. And this is just a mind-blowing book, especially if you really haven't gotten into the issue of food and climate. So that's what I have to say about that. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Linda. So like Bill said at the beginning of his introduction, when we eat, which we do throughout the day, every day, we have choices that we can make that are either like good or bad for the climate. And as a group, we want to be a group of people that's, willing to talk about that and what it means and how we can make choices that have a more positive impact, individually, but then, collectively on the environment that we all share. So if you're interested in learning more, please either put your email in the chat and I can add you to our group, or reach out to me or Linda or Bill. And we'd love to get you involved with the Climate Friendly Food Committee. We meet once a month and our meetings are always on the first Tuesday at 3 p.m. And we do our meetings via Zoom. So no matter where you are, if you have internet, you can join up with us on the first Tuesday at 3 p.m. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Linda. We have, like I mentioned earlier, Zoe is working on our plastics committee and it's getting started, but it looks like you're going to have a little bit of support from the eastern part of the country. So that's awesome. Zoe, what's going on in plastics?
Yeah, thanks. So first off, can you hear me? Is my audio clear?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm experimenting with AirPods. It's a whole new realm for me. So yep, the plastics committee has only had 2 meetings so far. Luckily, they've had 10 attendees to each one, so I'm really excited to kind of see the trajectory that's going on. It's really inspiring to see there's a lot of people out there who care about the issue and want to take action. But after those 2 meetings so far, I would say we kind of have 3 main goals for the year that we want to address. And the first one would be to educate ourselves and others about the immediate and long-term effects of the life cycle of plastics on our climate's health, as well as our own. So kind of like it sounds every other committee is doing, education really does come hand in hand with that taking action. So we want to be able to be providing condensed, summarized information that's out there hand in hand with next steps that you can take as an individual. So on that note, we also want to be providing accessible tips for reducing plastic in your own life on a consumer level. Both of our meetings have been really interesting so far with people sharing the swaps they've made in their life, whether it be a low waste product they've purchased and supported, or kind of a DIY solution, which both have varying levels of impact. And it's been really exciting to see that people out there are already taking action in their lives, and they kind of want to expand it to the community level. The last thing we want to do is be supporting groups working on plastic reduction policies and organizations that support the proper recycling of plastics in the community. So I really think this committee is going to be focused on plugging into other initiatives and campaigns that are happening around Oregon and the Portland area versus kind of creating our own initiatives. I think we're going to be able to get a lot of manpower behind this committee. So I think it'd be great to use that and unite and plug into something that started to kind of get the ball rolling in other areas and see a more impactful change with our time, if that makes sense. Everyone's already, I'm sure, involved in so many other things. So it would be nice to kind of see change a little quicker. Along with that, I am going to be creating a website for our committee. It'll be built into the main climate reality page. On there, we'll be featuring blog posts, kind of summarizing information. Right now, we're working on gathering all of that data. There also will be resource pages with alternatives that you can do inside your own home. And then the third section will kind of be actions that you can take as chapter members or committee members. We really want to have a lot of different opportunities for people so that it's super flexible and you can choose on your own time when you want to take action. So whether that be volunteer activities that we're directly participating in, or if they're just volunteer opportunities I found around the Portland area, I want there to be a hub where people can go and find that and see if that's something that fits into your schedule. Of course, with Omicron going on, this might be a little bit limited right now, but that's something we can hopefully see expanding as things get a little bit safer. I guess I'll kind of wrap up by just saying what our first group plan of action is, and that is creating resources with talking points for our committee members to present zero waste packaging options to their frequented coffee shops and grocers. So we're lucky to have somebody from GoBox join our committee meeting. If you're not familiar with that, that's kind of a program where you get reusable takeout containers at local restaurants and grocers around Portland. Super awesome. You just get to drop them back off at where you got them or at another participating retailer. So that was really awesome. Waste Free Advocates was also there. So we've got a nice tabling event set up for the summer that we'll be able to participate in promoting these same things. So what everyone's doing at the next meeting is going to kind of create a list of talking points so that others can feel confident when they're going to have these conversations. That will be facts to back you up. That will be language to use. That's something that's going to be growing, and I'm excited because we have lots of different backgrounds in the group. So this is something that I think will be a really good resource, not just for this project, but for future ones as well. Each meeting is going to have a flexible agenda, and we're always going to end with some form of a call to action that you can work on before the next meeting. We meet the second Thursday at 6 p.m. So we have an evening meeting time. I know a lot of the other ones have morning and afternoon. So if that's inaccessible for you, we've got an evening one there at 6 p.m. All the meetings will be recorded and uploaded to the site. And they'll also have a recap on there if you don't have the patience to watch a whole hour-long video. So if you can't join the committee, if you know of any campaigns or projects we can plug into, please, please, please reach out to me by email. Let me know how we can be supporting other organizations and campaigns. And then, of course, if you're interested in joining the committee or becoming a lead for the committee, I need both of those. So please definitely reach out to me by email. I usually respond within a day or so. So I'm looking forward to hopefully connecting with some of you. You can always email me with questions or concerns, or if there's a direction you'd like to see us go, I would love to hear it. You're muted, Bill.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Zoe. Love to hear what the work you guys are doing. To say we kind of save the best for last is probably true. Lynn has worked in education for what, 2-3 years? And if we're doing a lot of work on policy and a lot of work on consumer choices, we also probably should be helping the next generation who's got to deal with this stuff, at least get educated on this stuff. And Lynn's been doing that for quite a while. Why don't you give us an update on what's going on, Lynn?
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate hearing this tremendous work. It just is so inspiring to hear about everything that's going on, and exciting to hear about things on the national level too. So another great meeting. I really appreciate being part of the Climate Reality Group. I won't take very long. I had a whole little spiel, but I'll save it for another time. But Ken's group with Renewable Energy, Ken, you mentioned the Beaverton Tigard district, and the Climate Reality National Group has a Green Schools campaign now that's youth-led, began in LA, but has gone national now. And they're getting students to lead the charge on really concretely asking for their school to be 100% renewable. And so that will be a great, great asset to any anything that goes down in a school district, is having a student group on your side. So that's one thing that we're working on developing. Mainly the Climate Reality Education Group coordinates and partners with a coalition organization called Vision 2030 that does outreach to middle school and high school students. And we do classroom presentations on climate solutions. So if you're interested in getting involved in that, we would love to have you. And then I'm going to make a big ask, because April 22nd, Earth Day, we have a climate solutions fair coming up at Roseway Heights Middle School for 670 students. And so we're really excited about that, and we'll need lots of volunteer help around that. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, we're going to be starting a little group that's working specifically on that, and we'll probably be meeting weekly, maybe sometimes every other week, but hitting that pretty hard to plan for that by the April 22nd date. So I put put that announcement in the chat, and also my email. And we hope, we've been doing virtual presentations, but we hope to begin to do in-person presentations beginning in March, providing health conditions permit at that time. So if you're interested in schools and working with students in a really positive way, promoting climate solutions, get in touch. So thanks, that's it.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for hanging out with us for a little over an hour today. And thanks for all the updates from the committee leads. I really do feel that the chapter now has a good mix, a healthy mix of actions that the person can take, actions that our community can take, and mixed in with education. And kind of the big thing I think that adds to all this is the legislative focus to actually get a complete solution to this problem, started from either Salem, Olympia, or out to DC. So I really feel like we've got a good mix, a healthy mix of actions going on in the chapter. I hope that those of you who are looking for work to do in this area, and actually I am looking to spend a little bit more time actually working on specific actions. So I'll be hitting up one of you guys for some volunteer time here pretty soon. I think I'm looking at you, Lynn. I think I might be ready to do that kind of work now. But I hope you guys can get motivated. And also, you may or may not know, but we have over 300 people in our chapter. And, you know, we have 2025 come to a chapter meeting, which is great. It's awesome. It's probably what the average is across the country, a little over 10% of the chapter membership. But anytime that you hear of someone from the chapter, ask them if they went to the last meeting, encourage them to come. It's super fun. I think when we get together, it'll be even more fun. But we do have a lot of people interested in this topic in the Portland area, the greater Portland area, I should say. And it's just, it's a good thing. And I think we just need more folks like you guys doing stuff. You know, so any way we can get more people in, awesome. If you haven't been trained, there will be trainings coming up online, and they're really easy. I didn't realize that they had 6,000 people in the training. That was news to me. That's a good amount of people, and we need that kind of participation to get people working on this stuff. So thanks a lot. If there's any other comments, anybody wants to, any thoughts or comments about the meeting or questions they have, let's hear it, and we'll get you an answer. If not, have a great end of January, I guess. Okay.
Thanks, Bill. Great.
All right, we'll
meeting.
see you guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Bill.
Stay safe, everybody.
Yep.